Fucking finally, that bans are coming to the older formats of Magic the Gathering after too long of a fucking wait. This video is brought to you by channelfireable.com, so if you are looking to pick up singles or sealed product from the Channel Fireable marketplace, use the link in the description below to help support the channel. Wizards of the Coast, after banning ATOG, Bonder's Ornament, and Prismatic Prism in Pauper, announced via their Twitter account that there's more bans coming this week. Today's update to the ban restricted list features changes to the Pauper format. On Tuesday, the 25th of January, there will be an additional ban restricted announcement addressing other formats. This is big fucking news, because before Eternal Weekend, Wizards were reluctant to do anything to fix the shit state that Legacy is currently in. Namely the two formats that I really care about in this coming ban announcement, which, just so you know, for timings wise, is tomorrow. Today is Monday the 24th. I'm excited for the 25th, but I'm very busy tomorrow, so I won't be able to do a video until after the ban announcements. So this is my drumming up hype, getting excited, and pseudo predictions video, although I don't have any hard and fast predictions. Right now, at time of recording, Izzet Delver is just shy of 20% of the Legacy metagame, which is kind of fucking stupid. If we begin with Legacy, it's a format that I think has the most problems right now. Modern, I think, is in a relatively healthy place, but Legacy has been the one that has been dominated the most by Murktide Regent, Ragavan, and Dragon Rage Chandler, three powerful threats that came from Modern Horizons 2. This has led to a shift in the metagame where, for example, Elves is a prominent deck at the moment and D&T is 12th. It's dropping. That's my deck for those joining for the first time. That's a deck that I love to play. When Delver is shy of 20% and you're closest to it, at the moment is Reanimator at 6 and Elves at 6, all taking figures from MTG Goldfish here, you know there's a problem. And Eternal Weekend highlighted this too. Whilst Izzet Delver wasn't putting out like 60 to 70% win rates, it's actually a bit lower than that. I think it was still over 50 though, if I remember correctly. There was an argument that at the weekend of Eternal Weekend on Modo, everyone had access to every deck because the accounts were unlocked for that. So most players were just clamoring to play the best deck. I have talked a little bit in my CFB column and on this channel in some shorts about how I don't think we can keep going with banning the proactive threats of each new set that goes straight into Modern or Legacy. Modern Horizons 3 is in the distance, and Lord of the Rings comes out at the beginning of next year as well, which will go straight into Modern or Legacy, so there's going to be powerful cards in them, or at least you'd think so if they're going straight to Modern. What I don't want to see is that Gandalf and Gimli and Frodo and co. all just get banned out of the format eventually, much like a lot of the proactive threats of Modern Horizons 1 and the power creep periods of the Eldraine and stuff did as well. There's an argument, and I believe it's quite a strong argument, that we need to get rid of some of the cards that help the shells like Delver become the best way to house these threats. The reason that the Okos of this world are broken, well, Oko is always broken, to be honest. It doesn't matter whether there's Daze or Brainstorm. But the Renin Sixes and the Okos and the Deathflight Shamans all are better or best in the 4-color pile decks and the Delver decks. And that's often because of things like Brainstorm, Daze, and Force of Will. These are the holy cows of the format, and no one is willing to kill them. No one is willing to tear down the pillars. No one is willing to have that kind of change. Which is weird, really, considering these formats now change and rotate so regularly with the injection of your power creep cards from standard sets on Modern Horizons 1 and 2. So with that said, I don't want to see just Murktide and Ragavan banned and then we move on, or Murktide, Ragavan and Urza Saga. I don't want to see that. I think that you want to hit one of those threats. I think Murktide will probably end up being just the best blue threat they ever have access to, right? It's probably the new Delver in many ways. It doesn't quite fulfill the same role in terms of being not as cheap, but it's pretty much the same role, right? So I kind of want to see Murktide or the Monkey go, but I want to see other things go as well. Expressive Iteration is a commonly discussed one because it's a very powerful cantrip. It is basically up there in the canon of super duper fucking cantrips now. It's up there with Brainstorm, Ponder, and Preordain, and one of those could go, right? Ponder, Preordain, and Brainstorm. They're never banning Brainstorm. But Expressive Iteration's also in that sort of camp of cards they can get rid of. Meanwhile, I think Force of Will is incredibly good for the format, and without Force of Will, a lot of turn 1 combo decks and powerful turbo combo decks just get too good. I think Force of Will and Force of Negation are ultimately good for the format, and they have more downside than, say, Daze does. Daze serves to either really catch you out in the early game when you're building huge tempo, and it makes Ragavan very good for that reason, and it can be played around by just going off a turn later with one more mana source. So it's not really doing the enforcing that Force of Will does, but at the same time it is improving the Ragavan, Murktide, blue-red based tempo decks. I think if we were going to cut one of the holy pillars of the format, I think Daze is the best one to go. I also don't think people associate Legacy too much with Daze unless they've just been playing Delver for fucking 10 years. Play something else, my friend. Can you imagine someone said that to me about Vile or Thalia? I would tell them to fuck off. So I do appreciate that that was a little bit, yeah, a bit harsh. And if we turn our eyes to Modern, it doesn't really look too bad. There are some decks that are dominating, Death Shadow and Hammer Time being the two big culprits. As you can see here, 13% of the metagame. There's a Yorion deck following up at 10, and then we've got Murktide Regent at around 8%, which is not a Delver deck per se, but a tempo bordering on mid-range Murktide Regent variant, playing Ragavans and Murktides and expressive iterations, all the stuff you'd expect. And then there's Crashing Footfalls, and then below that, below Crashing Footfalls, everything else is sub 5%. Jund is sticking about, Amulet Titan is in there, Azorius Control, the normal culprits really. We live in a world where Tron is less than 2% of the metagame the majority of the time, which is kind of fucking wild, considering Tron was a deck that people clamoured for and argued for bannings of for the longest time. They kept printing cards that would be a Tron killer for the longest time as well. Turned out what really kills Tron is just power creeping the shit out of everyone else's removal, card selection, and threats. Why go out of your way to make 7 mana to play a 7 or 8 mana colourless spell when your 1, 2, 3, and 4 mana cards are so fucking insane? Honestly, whilst Modern feels healthier than Legacy does at the moment, I do feel like, for example, the decks that I like to play, Green White Hatebears, Death and Taxes, that sort of stuff, they feel so badly positioned right now. D&T is at least playable in Legacy, even if you don't want to play against Delver multiple times. Those decks that I like to play in Modern have been forced out, mainly by Fury of all things, a card that doesn't really get discussed much. I never really see anyone talking about Fury, in spite of the fact that, according to Goldfish, it's the 4th most played card in the format behind Lurrus, Ragavan, and Dragon Rage Channeler. While Solitude is a strictly you pitch 2 cards, you play the Solitude and exile a card, and you remove a threat, it's a free removal spell. Instead, Fury is often you pitch a card, play the Fury, and you kill 1, 2, or sometimes 3 creatures. Or in the real best case scenario, you kill 4, like a Thalia and a Flicker Wisp. Even just kill a Thalia and Flicker Wisp, 2 cards is great. That's not taxed by Thalia either. I'm very much coming at this from the perspective that I want to play Thalia decks, I know. But it's rough. It's rough for other decks like Humans and stuff as well. Fury is a really frustrating card to play against. Does that mean it should go? I don't know. I do find it unfun and just warping the metagame into somewhere where a lot of decks that I like don't get played. So I'll be glad to see it go, but I can't make an argument other than the decks that I love are hurt by it. And Lurrus, of course, continues to be a fucking shit as well. Commonly played in Hammer Time and Death Shadow, the 2 best decks in the format. Honestly, I really hope they just, bite the bullet and get rid of Companion. I would love to see all the Companions unbanned in all formats. Is Lurrus still banned in Vintage? I haven't played any Vintage for years. But Zerda in Legacy and stuff like that, if they just removed the Companion text, if they just bit the bullet and said, you know what, Companion was so shit, let's just remove it. Modern and Legacy, you can now play these cards, they exist, but Companion is gone. Again, I don't have a metagame or percentage of metagame argument for this. Well, actually I do, right? Lurrus dominates Modern as 2 of the best decks. There you go. That actually is hard information or numbers to back this up. But I kind of just fucking hate that the majority of Modern is multiple Lurrus decks, couple of Yorion decks, and Kahira shows up in blue-white control, creatureless control, where, well, I say creatureless, it plays 4 Solitude, but that doesn't break the requirement. They could even leave them as playable in Historic or something. Historic is now its own beast, right? Digitally unique cards, digitally errated cards, because of the fucking changes with alchemy. Fuck it, just leave Companions as they are. Or fuck it, just alchemize them so that the Companion text is something different, or I don't fucking know, do something to them to make them wholesale different at that point, because that Pandora's box is open. But why not improve both Legacy and Modern, in my humble opinion, by getting rid of these stupid fucking Companions, full stop. Beyond the Companions in Modern, there isn't anything I really feel like we need to get rid of. Murktide Regent, I would happily see go. The Crashing Footfalls deck is too good into decks that I like because of Fury, but again, that's because of what I like to play. Perhaps they get balanced out. Well, that said, perhaps their balancing factor should be Thalias and such, and they're just really bad into Fury, so maybe that's not good. And also, Hammer Time, even if they lose Lurrus, would probably be really, really good too. So maybe it needs to be hit by something. I don't know. I don't know what part I would hit to not kill the deck entirely, but do power away. Maybe just taking Lurrus out and then observing its numbers over time is the best way to do that. Beyond the bannings, there is also the possibility that they take some things off the list to mod. The modern ban list, for example, is as long as my fucking penis. And I tweeted out yesterday asking people what you take off and why, and there was such a huge variety of people coming forward with variety of answers from a variety of people. Some of them were insane. I don't think we can have Punishing Fire come off when one of the best decks in the format is the blue-red tempo control deck with Murktide Regent, because it'll probably just splash. I say splash. It'll play Grover the Burn Willows to play the Punishing Fire cards. I don't think punishing creature decks even more in the format is a good idea. That's why I don't think Jit should come off either. The artifact lands seem harmless. Birthing Pod seems like it would be relatively slow compared to some of the things the other parts of the format are doing. There's also the argument that Twin would be a deck that gets interacted with and disrupted by some of the new cards very well. It's obviously bad into things like Force of Negation. I do think there are cards that have been printed since Spirit led to Twins banning, things like 3 mana Teferi, another card that I would love to see go. There's a lot of cards I'd love to see go, right? But Teferi, plus all these sort of new interactions, expressive iterations and similar, might make Twin too good. I've said this in the past, but honestly, the fact that Force of Negation can catch it in their turn, but you can't defend it with the Force of Negation, maybe, but at that point, then you're playing Force of Negation, and it might just make the blue decks the best in the format. We already have that fucking problem in Legacy. Green Sun Zenith is another one that I feel like it opens the door for more decks and more consistency in green creature-based decks. I don't really know why it's on the fucking list anymore, honestly. I've seen arguments that it would make the Devoted Druid, like, infinite combo decks better, but honestly, most of the creatures those decks play aren't green. Whether that be your Heliod, your Walking Ballistas, or your Viziers to make infinite combo mana, like, they're not green creatures. So maybe it'd open up a toolbox. Maybe it'd open up a new archetype in the format. There are cantrips like Preordain on Ponder on the list. There's so much shit. I'd love to see Mox Opal come back, honestly. Although the best deck in the format being Hammer Time means you probably can't bring Mox Opal back. And it was always in broken decks, right? I just miss it. All my old meme builds are Simian Spirit Guide on Mox Opal for the most part. Look, this is just ramblings from an old man who wants to see Modern and Legacy on this channel more as I play them. Because I do love those formats when they're in a good spot. I think Modern is perfectly fine right now. I think Legacy really needs some attention. I guess I'm itching for some, I don't know, maybe it's been a month or so without releases, right? We haven't any new cards coming out and changing anything up. So maybe I'm now sort of itching for a change, which is a little bit hypocritical because I'm often commenting on how Magic moves too fast. But at this point, I want something to draw me back to Modern and Legacy by making the formats exciting and fun again. So I'd love to see some big shakeups. Either way, that was just some thoughts off the top of my head on the bans tomorrow. I will do a video post-bans talking about what happened and where that will take us, or where I think it will take us. If you've got an opinion that you want to share, please tell me in the comment section below. I'm very open. I'm all ears because I'm all over the place in how I feel about all this. I just know that we can't just ban Ragavan and Legacy. That would suck. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.